You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
We'll finish this off with some life advice here. lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Okay, guys have been having problems with these ski trips, so we'll do another one of these. Mid-30s, married, love to ski. Every year we do a big ski trip with 2 other couples up to the Epic Pass area. Epic Pass sounds pretty sick, huh? That's Colorado, I believe. A year or so ago, we invited a new couple who we loosely know from work that also likes to ski. Bad timing because a week after inviting them, he lost his job. We didn't think they'd accept, but they did, and having the 4th couple drove us to a more expensive property. So we're talking now 8 people, 4 couples, more expensive property that they rented out. We did a couple days out there, and all this couple did was complain about how expensive everything was. I drove them up there in my car, and he quibbled about paying for gas. He said the first tank was that I had. Wait a minute. Let me make sure I get this out right. He quibbled about paying for gas. He said the first tank was gas that I had already bought and it didn't count towards the trip. Yuck. I nodded and said, I guess you're right. Let me try to guess how the guy said it. I guess you're right. And moved on because I knew he had lost his job. The food on the mountain was too expensive. The ski rentals were too expensive. The drinks at the bar were too expensive, on and on. It basically ruined the weekend. When I was organizing the trip, I emailed everyone and said each couple was responsible for making one dinner at the cabin so we didn't have to go out every night and pay for expensive meals. Not only did the newly unemployed couple not make a meal, they never helped with the dishes. On the night they were supposed to cook, we ordered pizza. I could go on and on. So here's what I need, life advice. I don't think you need anything from me, by the way. A week or so after getting back, my wife and I decided this couple wasn't exactly, quote, friend material. We had hung out with them for almost a week and 2 6-hour car trips and shuddered at the thought of spending more time with them. Then came to our house and they apologized, all caps. They came to our house and apologized to us for how shitty they had been. It was out of the blue and a perfectly sincere apology, but my wife and I still don't want to be friends with them. That's how bad the experience was. Do I owe them another chance? First of all, you don't owe them anything. The first instinct is usually the right instinct. Anybody, despite losing the job, we can have empathy for that, right? But if your mind is able to do the calculations that you can't kick in $20-$30 for gas in a car that you're getting a ride in, and your first thing is the gas that's in the car is already paid for, and so this doesn't count towards the trip. That's a burning magma flag. All right. It's not just a red flag. That is just walking on the sun type of a red flag. So I think it's great they came over and apologized. I would lean towards, give them another shot. You never know. I'd like to know why they came over and apologized. Did they actually have some self-assessment the week later where they said, we really sucked on that trip? Yep. I mean, it is possible. It was a one-off deal. He was super upset. They're fighting about things, all this uncertainty, losing a job. Like, it's tough. It's tough to go through all of that. But that you can be bummed out and you shouldn't have said yes to the trip, first of all. But this tells me if you're capable of saying something like that about a gas tank, I'm like, well, I shouldn't have to pay now. You already paid for that gas. Doesn't go towards the trip. That tells me this isn't the only time he's ever done that. And it doesn't have as much to do with him losing his job. So I would lean towards not giving them another chance. But I'd like to know why they came and apologized to you. Does that mean that somebody else in the group that's closer to them said, hey, you guys sucked all weekend, go apologize to them? And they did it? I mean, it's kind of redeeming. But my guess would be if you hung out again, there's going to be something that comes up again. There's going to be another thing that comes up again where you're like, he buys you around and then you say you want to go home and he's like, you can't leave yet. You owe me one Coors Light. I'm like, oh, that's right. Sorry, Dave. I'll make sure we're equal here. Make sure the trade treaty here is met to government standards. So that's up to you. But that line about the gas tank thing, not a good sign. Okay, this one's pretty heavy. So it's a bummer. It's not like, it's not the heaviest thing we've ever touched on, but this one's a super, it sucks. All right, so here we go. What's up, guys? Longtime listener. He's sent multiple life advice Oh, I don't know if I like that, Kyle, but we'll go with it. Okay. To set some background, I'm 28 with no real financial obligations outside of rent, car payment, insurance payments. My parents never expressed the power of the dollar, nor did they teach my sister or I what it meant to save. They almost lost their home in 2008 due to the financial crisis, like many other families. Now I've worked my ass off to create a safety net for real emergencies. I've been trying to pay down my car and save for a house in Denver. Good luck with that. That sucks because Denver is just on fire for quite a while. But, you know, I don't know when these prices are going to go down again. I don't know. So I don't think anybody was expecting me to break that news for you today. Well, here's what I'm hearing about the interest rates. Okay, so anyway, so 2 years ago, I'm beginning to explore the real estate market. Again, our guy said he's 28. All right, so I go through the normal steps. The mortgage lender gets in touch with me about my credit score. I'd use Rocket Mortgage as a lender at the time. At the time, I was in the low 600s. Ew. That was alarming to me, but I did have a car payment of $475 on a 5-year loan on a brand new car that I bought when I'd moved from Atlanta to Denver 3 years previously. And as a result, I just struck up the low credit score to the high loan amount from the banks. Yeah, that's definitely not what it was, unless you had all sorts of terrible history before that. I know you've always harped about the credit score and have a lot of experience in this area. Yes, I do, but I want it on the record that I have never missed a credit card or a car payment of any kind. So there's no reason your score should have been in the 600s. What I ended up finding out was my mom had taken out loans in my name to help keep afloat on the house. I confronted her about this, and she explained to me that while I was in college, she had taken out the loans to save the house. Before we ended our conversation, she alluded to the fact that this was only to save the house. The loans had been paid back, and that my dad had never been made aware of this because she thought it would kill him. At the time, I actually understood it. She said she was trying to do what she could to save the house and survive like so many other families did in 2008. Fast forward to 3 years ago. So she goes and destroys your credit because she tries to take out probably some refinancing deals in your name to open up the lines of credit to save the house. Okay, but the problem is that she did that to save the house, but she was also completely okay with not paying any of that stuff, because if she had paid any of it on the refinancing or whatever the new payment package was going to be, then your credit still could have been fine. It actually could have improved at that young age because you were going to start your credit history while you were in college. But she didn't just use your name and information fraudulently. She then had no problem whatsoever not paying any of it and fucking you up. So, all right, fast forward to 3 weeks ago. I'm looking at homes again, go through the normal process again and speak with 3 different lenders this time to explore my options given all the changes in interest rates. They run their credit checks and come back with some alarming news. There are now 6 credit cards in my name. I have 2 that I know of, and one is a company credit card that I hardly ever use. So that means the lenders let me know they are seeing my credit score in the range of 610 to 640, which means you're fucked. As a result, I asked them to send me the report so I can do some investigation. I had known that my mom had opened allegedly one credit card in my name right out of college to create some sort of credit. All right, there you go. Exactly. Parents will do that. Most of them don't commit fraud. I didn't ask for the first credit report from Rocket Mortgage for the first time, so no telling how long this has been going on. I mean, look, there's another side. I don't feel like kicking you while you're down here, but you need to be a little bit more on this. I mean, I didn't like the news, but at least I would monitor it and see how things are improving in my 20s. So you just never, that's a lesson to everybody else. Find out what your credit score is. If you're going to start thinking, hey, 3 years to, actually, you should just always know what it is. And it's super easy to do with apps now and some of the bank accounts that would already provide it, keep you kind of a ballpark number. All right. Knowing that my mother had taken out the loans in my name and a credit card in my name, I called her and asked about these 6 credit cards. She told me she'd actually opened 6 credit cards in my name to the tune of 30 grand worth of outstanding debt. So your mom then, after the loan deal a couple of years ago, takes out 6 credit cards, 30 G's. Great. As you can imagine, I was absolutely irate when I discovered what she was doing. I proceeded to ask her what was going on. She stated that she had been running up the bills, then slowly paying them down to create a paper trail and show a credit history. That doesn't make any sense. I told her this was unacceptable, and that was not only hurting my credit score, but also my potential interest rate on the home, which is the whole point. All right. You can maybe get a loan right now, man. Like, I wouldn't say anything's impossible, but you're not going to like the loan package. You're not going to be telling any of your buddies on the golf course, be like, oh, what'd you get? Oh, I got a 275 arm. Oh, man, I got a 3130 fixed. What'd you get? Oh, I'm at 9. I don't even know if that's what the case is, but you're going to have to do way more of a down payment if you don't have a ton of cash. So that's going to suck, and your rate's going to suck. If somebody will even lend it to you, which we'll get to a little bit later here. So I don't have all the information here. She goes on to lecture me. So I told her this is unacceptable, and it was not only holding my credit score or interest rate. She goes on to lecture me about how when her and my father bought their first home, that no one helped them, and their interest rate was 14%. Our guy says, way beyond the point, Mom. I agree. That's actually sucks that your mother's first default here was to tell you that the interest rates were high in the 80s, which they were. Interest rates back then were ridiculous. But it was, depending on how you looked at all the things moving around and all the different pieces, government tried to make a point of trying to get home ownership, the American dream for people over time. So that has nothing to do with you. And it's a horrible point to even be made, which means that I don't want to assume anything here about your mom, but she's not coming off great in this one. All right. So I told her that I wanted her to pay off the totals and give me all the login information, each account. She then lectures me again, how it's good to show you were paying down the balances instead of paying them all at once. Well, that's not true either. No credit place is like, hey, what we love is these high balances that aren't going to be paid off for 8 years because you're doing minimum payments. They don't want balances. They don't want balances all over the place. Like I just put something on a credit card once when I moved, and the mortgage company tried to ding me and get a higher rate for me because I had supposedly a high balance. And it was ridiculous. I'm like, yeah, I just had to pay for all this moving stuff. And you motherfuckers are coming back at me trying to say that I have to I have to do a different mortgage product now. No, absolutely not. And, they tried to run it while there was 10, 12 grand on one credit card that was paid off. And it wasn't like carried over. So anyway, her argument sucks. You already know this. You didn't come here to confirm that. So, after a lengthy conversation, she tells me she'll pay them all off. I ask her to send me the log information via text, but she's yet to do that. I let a few days pass. I reach out to my sister to let her know what's going on. You'll never guess. She discovers $10,000 in outstanding debt. My mother's collectively earned up $40 grand in debt between her two children. Understandably, we were both incensed by the situation she's put us in. Back in the South this last weekend for a wedding when my sister and I grabbed a drink, she shows me the nifty little feature on the Chase banking app. There you go. That you can monitor your credit balances. Guess what? She hadn't paid off any of the cards. Of course she didn't. She's lying to you guys. I know it's your mom. I know it hurts. And it's like, I think if there's one person in the world, the reason why moms can be so great is that, like, no matter what, your mom, some of you, that's your dad. But I think most of us would say, if your mom ever disappoints you, it hurts in a way that's beyond any other disappointment, friend, coworker, and even spouse. Your mom is supposed to be your mom for a reason, right? And your mom is fucking you over and fucking your sister over, and she doesn't seem to have any remorse whatsoever. And like you said, she's not paying them off, so whatever. All right, so I've not spoken to my mother in nearly a month and a half. My entire foundation of who I thought she was and the things she taught me as kids have been rocked to the very core. Exactly. Last two pieces of information. My dad and I were talking about money this Christmas. He let me know that he'd crossed the millionaire threshold last year. Okay, wait. So I know they're not hurting for money. Additionally, my father does not know about any of this. I would tell him immediately and tell them to pay off your fucking debt that has nothing to do with you. And you can't look at your mom as your mom in this case. You have to look at her as somebody that has been incredibly selfish, irrational. I would argue even showing signs of being a little, I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but I would say there's a pattern here that would say her rational thinking is challenging. All right. So I'm just trying to be nice. Like, what's the other side of this? Being, it's my mom, I'm going to let it go. No, not at all. She hasn't cared about how you felt the entire time. And it doesn't mean you're never going to talk to your mom again. It doesn't mean, but this is a total betrayal. And she didn't care enough about damaging the relationship. 2008, you want to say she's saving the house? Fine. But she did it to you, and then she did it to you again, and then she did it to your sister. And you and your sister need to sit everybody down and go to your father, especially if he's bragging about being a millionaire and saying, hey, guess what? We're going to shave a little off the top. And you need to work on getting things right, because if your credit is as bad as it is, it sounds that it is, and there's outstanding balances, you're years away from getting a decent rate for home ownership, if you could even afford anything in Denver or Cherry Creek right now anyway. So good luck. So I know that sucks, but the be nice about it because it's my mom deal hasn't worked to this point. And this is this kind of stuff sucks, man. When your family, that's the great thing about families in theory, but when your family's the one that betrays you and you feel like you can trust your friends or people you didn't grow up with more, it sucks. It hurts way more, man. So sorry, but I don't think you have many choices except for one, to confront it head on and let them know how you feel. Because the great thing about some confrontation is it's awesome when you're right about every part of the confrontation.
How do you take a loan out in someone else's name? You know how many times I couldn't get a loan, and it's probably good for me that I didn't get a loan, because I was like, man, if I could just get $10,000 here, like, I'd be straight. I would be on the path, and I didn't get anything. And so how is someone else taking a loan out in like a college kid's name? Or is it because they're co-signing it? Like, how the fuck?
Well, she has a social security number. She's got a birth certificate. She's got every single piece
I have
of
those things
information.
about me too, and I can't get anything.
Well, she may have co-signed herself. She may have done one of those
Word.
deals where she co-signed her own loan. I mean,
Then she would
there's
be
also
fucking
other
herself
ways
over,
you can
though,
do
right?
it. Sometimes family members will have a joint bank account, and then you show up and look at the bank account, and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. So, I've been through my own stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but there are times where you realize if somebody's determined to get money from you, they'll figure out a way. But especially when it's a mom, they're going to have the birth certificate, they're going to have the social, they're going to have all your address, they're going to update all that, they're going to plug in all the security questions, and then if she wants to sign herself off. And the other thing you got to remember too is that even in the subprime crisis, and I don't know the perfect timeline of it. I mean, the biggest issue was because they were just lending money. They wanted you to borrow money because so much of it was adjustable anyway, so they didn't really give a shit. And then guys were closing on deals and then selling the debt to somebody else. So everybody was just like, hey, let me close my deal, take my cut. And then now it's somebody else's problem if the person can't pay for the house. But it doesn't sound like that's the case necessarily. It sounds more like it's, I don't know, was she, I don't know. Why was this? Well, again, I mean, we're talking 13 years ago. So that part I could at least understand to save the house if there was a ton of financial trouble. But it's clear she's wired in a way where she doesn't care. She doesn't care, man. So why should you worry about her feelings when she didn't worry about yours? And I know some people may think this is harsh and that for a mom, the rules should be different. Yeah, the rules should be different. You shouldn't be fucking over your kids. Kyle, I thought you were going to be like, how do you get a credit card in somebody else's name for a different reason? I was like, wait, why are you asking
No,
this?
I guess maybe because back in 2008, like you're saying, like they would give a guy like me a shitty loan like that. So maybe that's the part I'm missing here. Because I always knew like my friends were like, oh, my mom's, put the cable in my name or something. And I kind of fucked over on that. But it's like, how much is a cable bill really going to get run up over the years or something? But like, I was just thinking how hard it was for me to get like $10,000 or $8,000 to fix a messed up credit card and to have a little walking around money. It just was never happening. I was just constantly getting no's. And I was just like, how did she get $30,000 on this guy who was like in college? But I guess it was because it was 2008.
Yeah, I mean, they used to send you pre-approved credit cards in the mail. I don't think they do that anymore, right?
No.
I mean, I was still getting those right as I was coming out of.
Mine was like
my
$700, and then they upped me to like they tripled my thing without me knowing it, and my credit card just kept working. And then I was like, oh, I guess you tripled my thing, and I also tripled my debt. So we're out of that now. But I was like, I didn't ask for this. I called my dad. I was like, they can't fucking do that, can they? He was like, oh, they did it.
Anything I've ever been good at is only because I fucked it up, So I'm not. Whenever anybody's like, hey, you're good with this, or you're good with that, I'd be like, I'm only good at any of this because I fucked up all of it. This is not advice because I'm perfect. It's advice because I've probably screwed up whatever grown-up stuff it was that you were supposed to do. So I'm like, oh, okay, you did that wrong. All right, here's what you do. Although I never had the car stuff. Like I've never even had a speeding ticket. I've never had that like, oh, your car, although wait, let me think. Oh, that's right. One time I think actually, I remember my registration had expired and I didn't know because I got a ticket for a meter in Boston at my house. And when I would drive back from ESPN the first 3 years I worked there, I would park, on Com Ave, and I was lucky to ever find a spot. So I'd have to move it by a certain time. But if I didn't get a ticket, I didn't get a ticket. And sometimes in the winter or whatever, you get a ticket, then it would blow off. And so it happened once, and I got pulled over. And the guy was like, "Hey, I think he pulled me over because there was like a dent in the side of the car." And, I think there's some profiling there on, there's some more egregious profiling. That's a much bigger topic that I'm not going to get into. But I also think that if you're a cop, you're like, okay, this guy looks like he could have something wrong with him. Like, why is there a dent in his car? So
dude, I had a garbage bag window, and that's what I was so afraid of.
Yeah, garbage bag window. This guy has a couple. This guy has a couple Coors Lights before he gets behind the wheel. I mean, he's just auto. So, if he doesn't have glass covered, then this guy's got some real big issues. But I got pulled over and the guy was like, "Hey, your registration is actually toast." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" No, I got it here. And he goes, "No," he goes, it's being, I don't know what it was. He's basically trying to tell me, I don't know, maybe he was messing with me.
Maybe you're
I was
suspended.
like, "No, it says it's." it wasn't. So he didn't suspend anything because I was basically there, and I was like, no, I didn't know. Like, I didn't know I got this ticket. And he's like, yeah, you got a ticket. You never paid it. And so then it went down this. So yeah, even that I sort of understood. But yeah, as far as like those guys that get so many speeding tickets and have a suspended license for 60 days and you have to do all that just go slower would be my, just go slower, man. That's all I could tell you. But I've never had that issue that I've had to deal with. So, all right, that's a lot of stuff. Long podcast. Enjoy the trade deadline. And Simmons and I will be going for like 3 hours, I think. We just got the heads up, maybe 3 hours on Thursday, going through the very end, wrapping up everything. And then next week, a 2-part special, ABA stories based on the book Loose Balls. We have Dr. J, Rod Thorne, Bob Costas, Artis Gilmore, and the author of the book, Terry Pluto. We're going to do that 2-parter because I am going to take my first time off since August of 2019. So looking forward to it. And the podcasts are terrific, so you're not going to miss anything except for life advice. And we gave you plenty on this one. This one way too long. So thanks as always. Have a great weekend.